Today? Hey guys!
Hey!
I'm Thomas, publishing manager at Voodoo.
And I'm not Hugo, sorry to disappoint. I'm Corentin, for those who don't know me. I'm also a publishing manager here at Voodoo. I've done a few live streams before, but yeah, very happy to be here with Thomas.
Yeah, welcome to this week's live stream. We wanted to chat with you about a few subjects today, few important subjects. First of all, we're going to try and focus this live stream and the questions that we have mostly on game creation, game feedback, really kind of product, the games in themselves.
And the basic rules really that you also really
Exactly.
have to focus on when you're creating your games for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. All process-related questions, dashboard-related questions will be considered in our looms on the dashboard in various other specs that we have.
And the FAQ we have on the dashboard, we've updated it. We're always updating it with the questions you've asked us in previous live streams. So it should be close to 100% be able to answer all your questions. But obviously it's not perfect, so if you think of anything else we can add for the FAQ,
keep on telling us about it.
Give us a shout out, yeah. Definitely.
I think first thing first, we can go over a few of our basic rules.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we wanted to talk about this today is just put it very simply. We've noticed that we think a few people still don't quite understand exactly what we mean. I think we're also working on updates to our videos to make that a lot clearer. And I think we can start right now to go over the really most important ones. And I think the first one you wanted to talk about was snackable, right?
Yeah, snackable. So we're trying to push ultra casual games. So obviously those games have to be snackable. And what we mean by that is that the games have to be consumed or played in very short time sessions. So anything below 30 seconds is a good benchmark. And the reason a good hit game has to follow this rule of below 30 seconds is that the nature of the games we're trying to push is very short. Yep. People have very short attention spans these days.
Yep.
People play them on the bus, in waiting rooms, when they have literally 1 minute to kill. That's the time frame, the time space we're trying to capture for our games, and that's why the game has to be snackable. You have to be able to complete a full game loop in under 30 seconds.
Exactly. But there's another aspect of snackability, which is if it's short, if you want the player to be engaged, then it has to be very rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just have it short and stressful or short and not exciting. Yeah. Like you have to have it short and very exciting, very rewarding. Lots of stuff going on for the player. The best example is really the one of, it's like eating a Mars bar. It takes 15 seconds. You're really happy when you eat it because the Mars bar tastes really good, and you just want another one.
Exactly.
Right
Think of it as having a sugar rush, like a 30 second of pure sugar rush, pure pleasure, pure reward, and that's it. And then hopefully that reward is good enough that the player will want to do another round of the game and do the loop again and again and again. So it's that short, very rewarding concept of snackability that's very important to the games we publish.
That's absolutely right. What's interesting about that as well is that adding a lot of reward is very important, but you have to keep it clear and understandable for the player. Yeah. So you need that balance between it being very rewarding, but also focusing the player's attention on really the essential parts of the game. And the kind of guideline we have on that is really that it has to be stay system one, stay very interactive and YouTubeable.
Yeah.
So YouTubeability is the major guideline.
Yeah. So the YouTubeability, when we talk about YouTubeability of a game, what we mean by that is that people watching a video of a gameplay footage of your prototypes have to be able to understand the rules of the game, the mechanics, what they're supposed to achieve in the first 1 or 2 seconds of watching the video.
Immediately.
Because when you think of it, that when we run the tests for you guys, for your prototypes, we run tests on Facebook, and people are going to see the videos on Facebook on their smartphones. So the video they're going to see is going to be on a small screen. So everything that's really important for the players to understand the gameplay has to fit and has to be clear and easy to understand.
Has to pop out.
Pop out really, on a small screen. Always remember that when you're creating your gameplays and creating your videos for your games.
Yeah, and there's multiple ways to do this. A really good way is to rely on contrast between your different elements, making sure that your background, your obstacles, everything is very contrasted. So the player says, okay, I see this video, I completely get what the objective is, what my fail state is, what my victory condition is. If it's a level, like everything needs to be very abundantly clear for the player.
Yeah.
And I think we can follow through on this, saying it's really good to have all your elements very clear, but you should also have just a few, the most necessary elements. Otherwise, your game will become too complex, not intuitive, and therefore not System 1.
Exactly.
Which is really one of our most important guidelines. The kind of best way that we describe System 1, I think, is to say System 1 is like saying 2 plus 2, everybody knows it's 4. It's like obvious, clear, everybody knows this. And System 2 is like saying it's 472 divided by 293. That's
26.9.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. Yeah. We've said that joke too many times, now we know the answer.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's often the tendency for people to want to create something that's very juicy, and they add lots of elements, add lots of animations that look good, but they don't serve the gameplay. All the elements on screen have to serve the gameplay.
Yeah.
So the gameplay has to be simple. You have to be straight to the point in order for the game to be as System 1 as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think kind of System 2 is stressful. It's when you have to think about it, plan your next moves, have really good reflexes. Like all that is going to be a game which, even if it looks very casual, it's never going to be mass market. If you look at most popular games, it's almost binary. There's like, you can do this, you can't do this. It's clear. It's the same every time.
Yeah.
It's completely intuitive. Like in Helix Jump, you can pass through a hole in the platform. That's completely logical. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah.
And there's some places where you die. That's it.
Yeah, and the beauty of having something that's very System 1 and easily understandable is that the game will be understood by people in different countries from different cultural backgrounds. Yeah. You can really reach a huge population of users, male and female, by having something that's very simple, easy to understand. So it's having that most basic common denominator for your game features that you can have, so you can reach a really wide audience.
Yep.
I think we can take questions, or
maybe talk about the training quickly.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No problem. We just quickly wanted to chat or to talk to you about a kind of macro trend that we're seeing. So it's not as precise as we may have done in the past, saying card games are really popular, but it's more in terms of the evolution of ultra casual games. This is something we're still trying to confirm, and which we're still trying to make our thoughts more precise about it. But we are seeing that games with a tiny bit more depth in them. We don't want to say the word complexity, because that's really not it. It's actually not more complex. It's just a bit more depth in them. Have a tendency to perform a bit better at the moment. And this can be seen, like if you take a look at the top 10 on the US App Store, you can see games like Hello Stars, Bumper.io, which are games which are not like real, really complex games that require understanding of multiple mechanics. They are staying extremely simple, but at the same time they've got a layer of something on them which is a bit more deep.
Yeah, they have a little story to tell about them.
Exactly.
There's a bit more depth to it. So I think we're moving beyond the trend, or beyond the times of very simple, straightforward, flat 2D games. Obviously there is definitely still space for 2D games. Absolutely. You can have 2D games, but as long as they have a bit more depth to them, if you have a real sense of progression built into them, then yeah, there's definitely space for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can have 2D/3D games or 2D games with an impression of 3D to them. Those can also go a long way in that regard of having more depth to them.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think that's why we're getting a lot of questions about, okay, are puzzle games cool again, that kind of thing. So for sure, the way the puzzle games are set up, no. I mean, puzzle games are very high CPI. I mean, you're going to target a really short amount, like small amount of people.
Yeah.
But these games with a bit more depth in them, like the games we're seeing at the top, definitely. So it might be interesting to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, yeah, I think we can take a few questions for sure.
Yeah. I can't see.
Yeah, it's a bit too small. Sorry, I'm going to get back to it. There we go. Can we get feedback on improving the game? Sorry, we're just going over your questions, guys, trying to find a...
Bear with us.
Yeah,
so yeah, we know you've had a lot of questions about the dashboard, and yes, apologies, we're very sorry about that. The dashboard, again, is not working, or parts of it are not working. We have a really good and a growing team of developers that are trying really hard to fix that. Yeah. So please bear with us. We're really sorry it's impacting your game creation process. We know it's also impacting the work we have to do. But bear with us. It's going to be fixed soon, and hopefully in the near future we'll have no more problems with the dashboard. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So I think the first question, which is interesting, is from Daniel Garich. Hey Daniel, it's good to speak to you again. What if you have a game with really insane CPI but the retention is just plain bad? So that's a really interesting case. It's something that we have seen happen. I think the best way forward is to, if you have a game with really amazing CPI, you'll be in contact with the publishing manager here, who's definitely going to...
We'll reach out to you.
Yeah, we'll reach out to you. And the goal is really to work with your publishing manager, trying to find both solutions on how to improve the game as it is, but also how to keep the main elements of the game which are making the low CPI and improving upon it, adding things, twisting things, looking for simple but slightly different gameplay until we eventually hopefully reach much higher retention numbers.
Yeah, and also what that means if you have a really, really low CPI and not a good retention, what that means is that people see your ad on Facebook, they see the video that you sent us on Facebook, and they think, wow, this is super sexy, super trendy, I've never seen this before, it looks very dynamic, I want to play it. But then when they actually come into the game, they're like, well, this is a bit of a disappointment. There isn't that much into it. So that's generally the sort of explanation we can have for games that have a low CPI, but also low retention. So it's adding more depth to the game, more maybe level progression to the game. There's a variety of things you can look at to improve the retention of a game that has a low CPI.
Absolutely.
Do you have another question?
Yes, absolutely. TT is asking, can you give some examples of the depth you're talking about? Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think one of the reasons why we have a few .io games that are performing currently is that question of depth. Both Bumper.io and Hole.io are really, really simple games. When you look at them, they kind of have a lot of ultra casual mechanics. They, the player is really supported by the game, and the mechanics are axed towards making the player feel powerful and grow quickly. But at the same time, you have that interaction with other people, with enemies, which means that you do have to take into consideration a tiny bit more than when you're just playing, like in a single like yes/no situation against obstacles and things like that. It's just a little bit more subtle. Again, it's not more complex. If you see a Bumper.io, you get immediately what the game is, what the objective is. There's just that little nuance, that little depth that's added. I hope that's an interesting answer for you. We can go.
Yeah, I guess it's a good answer.
Oh, thank you. We may have touched on this already. Retro graphics duel is too niche.
Retro graphics.
From Spore Productions.
Sorry. So that's a question from Spore Productions. Hey man. So yes, those are a bit too niche. We don't see that many games on the App Store at the moment with retro gameplay. We see either 8-bit or retro voxel, or sort of neon type design. It is very niche. We've seen games like that through our system, and generally the CPI on those is above average and simply way too high for us to publish. So yeah, those are two niche. And also another drawback of that sort of style is that it's often really popular with only men.
Yeah.
Women users aren't that attracted to games with that style, and it's therefore much more expensive to acquire female users. And I think Thomas and Hugo or someone else touched upon that point of having a good balance between men and female users.
Yeah.
In games, so I'm not going to go into that right now, but you can go into the previous live streams.
Yeah, and we talk about it briefly, I think. Yeah. I think we have an interesting question from Vyacheslav Tarasov. Sometimes good day 7 retention results require twice more development time to create like new levels and stuff. Is it okay to significantly reduce the development time only to see if the day 1 is good? So this is a really interesting question because it touches on like creation techniques when you're making a game, and the best creation technique, once you have your idea of what the game will be, so you start from an experience or you kind of merge two games together. Once you have that, we have a video on the dashboard and I really encourage you to go see it. It's called the skeleton method. And what that means is that, yes, absolutely, cut down on development time to get an idea of CPI, get an idea of day 1, and from there, if you get good results, a publishing manager will be in contact with you and will find the best way forward to improve the stats. But start with the bones. If you don't have the bones, you're never going to be like maybe you can spend 3 weeks making great levels for a game that's going to have, a CPI like super high, and you're going to get 10 new users a day. And that's 3 weeks of your time that you're not going to get back, and you're not going to be able to work on better prototypes on that. So really, the most important thing is short development time, straight to the point, get to know the first ads, and then we take a decision.
Yeah, if you're worried about levels and level creation, ideally you shouldn't be creating them by hand, just like level by level. Like no, these should be automatically generated. You can do it the way that you prefer doing that, but you should be able to scale the levels really quickly at random. That's really the best way to have the best way to be effective in level generation and creating a sense of progression in your game. I think we have an interesting question from Halit Kaya. Hey man.
Hey Halit.
So the question is it a good idea to make a game that can be relatable to internet memes or viral things? We haven't seen games that directly use a meme, or we haven't seen that. It could be worth a try. Well, I mean, crazy idea, we don't know.
Maybe, but
we haven't seen that succeed in the past.
Yeah, and also in our mind, we're looking for games that are mass market, and not everybody looks at dank memes, No, it is true, and also we're looking for games that can last long, and a meme is like two months, and it goes crazy, and so you have a peak, and then it stops. So definitely, it's for me, and I think you'd agree with this. It's going to bias your results. Probably give a game which is
that's true.
Which might be a bit popular at the beginning, but it's going to die out really quickly, and that's definitely something you don't want, because then that's not real performance.
Our objective is really to launch games that will last over the long term, like a Sting vs Block or a Helix Drum that have been around for almost a year now. Right, Sting vs Block almost a year, right?
What?
Sting vs Block.
It's been almost a year and a half now.
Year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still very popular. Sorry, just a quick quote from Daniel Gerlich. Yes, I think this quote is absolutely fundamental. You have to be ashamed of the game you put out on the App Store if you want to know if it has potential. And we're saying this because we know that all you guys care about your games. You want them to be good, to reflect well on your development. If the game is a success, it's going to reflect well on your development. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to worry about go getting the stats. That's super important.
Do you have any other questions? It's good, we have fewer process questions than previous live stream. That's really good, guys.
Quite a few, but
it's still quite a bit, but I think questions about so if you have questions about your specific game and your specific D1, D7, we simply don't have the time to look into each and every game. So
okay.
Yeah, so always refer back to the dashboard, to the resources on the dashboard, and the FAQ.
So in general, what you guys know how to read the stats now. You know how to check how many users you're getting, what your day 1 is, what your day 7 is. From there, just go check out our videos, and we always mention, okay, this is going to be good for your CPI, this is going to be good for your day 1, for your day 7, and just take inspiration from that to really try and make it better if you start to see something interesting. An interesting question from Apps Dev. Any hints on balancing the difficulty curve? I guess it influences day 7 a lot. It's hard to get right at the first test, so that's super interesting. there's multiple ways.
That depends on each game.
Exactly, it's going to depend on each game. It's going to depend on
Which
the way
is a terrible answer, actually. It depends on each game. Sorry.
No, it does. But
it's true. It's the truth. It depends on each game.
But we can give some hints about
absolutely
balancing. I mean, of course, if you have a level-based game, you're going to want to increment in a very small way the difficulty in each level, so that players can progressively learn with the game how to get better at it. That's super important. If you have a game that's endless, then you can just do the same thing but over time on one session. And if you have a game which relies on upgrades or which we don't really recommend doing at the moment, but it's all about giving the player the feeling of progression. So if you're thinking about introducing some crazy obstacles in your game, something really scary, do it like later on, and just focus on increasing the difficulty in a very, very gradual way. And I think that's the best way we've seen of keeping the player on the longest time without needing to kind of go crazy with it.
Well, we're going to do in one of the future live streams, we'll be doing a more in-depth dive or case study in one of our recent hits. And in that one, having a really flat difficulty curve. So it starts off super, super easy, like very, very easy, and then increases very, very slowly. That actually really helped day 1 and day 7 jump up by like around 10 percentage points. Yep. So we'll do a full-length case study about that, and we'll show you we'll compare like each feature or each version of the prototype. So you'll see how those changed. But yeah, if you have a level base, having a very slow difficulty curve is the way to go.
Very steady.
Yeah, because you really have to onboard all those non-gamers that we're having, and those are really the individuals we're looking for.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow through on that question from Georgie. Hey, Georgie, good to speak to you. Which works better, levels or endless game style at the moment? Levels. Yeah. Levels. Yeah, levels.
We're agreed on that.
Just a quick note on what you said just before. We are going to be making a bit more kind of longer content related stuff with case studies also into the future. So just look out for those.
There will be one in not next week, but in the following weeks. Yeah, definitely.
One question I thought was interesting was that from Eugene Siminski. I apologize for that pronunciation, Eugene. Hey. Have you ever seen strange things that can trigger really high CPI despite bad retention, like mass destruction, Chinese stuff, etc.? I think what you mean is trigger really low CPI, and if that's the case, clarity, dynamism, and a clear, exciting gameplay is really the essential things you need to focus on. Like, it has to be so clear and exciting because it's dynamic and there's stuff going on, but not overwhelming.
I think Thomas did a video on the dashboard about CPI and how to reduce it.
Yes.
So you can go check that out. But to boil it down, you have really two big components of CPI, which is the clarity of the game and the trendiness of the game. So you guys have control over the clarity of the game, how it's presented. So you can look at all the must-have rules that we mentioned at the beginning of the stream to really focus on that and make sure the game is as clear as possible to the users. But then the second element, which is trendiness, that's something you unfortunately don't control yet. And neither do us. We can't control where the trend is at the moment. So that is an element of chance.
For sure. So, and the innovation as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another part of CPI.
Yeah, the game has to be. I mean, the more innovative it is, the lower the CPI. But I think we spoke about it last week with Hugo as well. I invite you to go check out that video where we talk about this quite a bit more. Je crois que c'est ceci.
Okay, so I can't read Cyrillic. I'm really sorry. So it's a Russian name. So the question is, should we allow players to spend more than 30 seconds of the game session? Or the game should be divided into levels. So I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think the idea is about how you make sure that the game remains snackable.
Despite with levels.
So kind of blocking the user after 30 seconds or dividing into levels. I think levels are popular also because they keep the game snackable and they give. The reason why you finish your game is not necessarily because you lose, but it's also because you get to the end of the level, and so you're creating a positive feedback for the player.
You've achieved something.
Yeah, exactly. Usually on endless games before, the difficulty would scale, and that's how developers would make sure that the games remain snackable. Now we have more and more techniques that enable us to to keep the game snackable while not punishing players. And I think that's a very interesting development for ultra casual games because that means that we can get higher attentions and more positive feedback from the player and just better acceptance of these casual games, and that's really, really exciting. I saw another one. Sorry. Yeah, this one.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you want to do it?
Yeah, well, you can go.
Okay. So another question from Halid Kaya.
Thanks.
So the question is there a method? There is a method I follow in development, which is to show an easy-looking gameplay, but a bit harder than it looks, which the player feels he can make it but fails. What do you think of this method? So what was that?
Well, so basically, if I get you, you're showing an easy level, but to play it, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is actually the opposite.
The opposite. If it looks really hard, but actually it's super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes the player feel like he's a superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like a pro gamer.
Exactly. So if you feel there's a real challenge, but actually it's easy to win it and to ace it, then you will increase that the reward aspect of the game. Coming back to snackability, that sugar rush.
Yeah.
Because the users will feel super rewarded by having the impression to do something very difficult when in fact it's actually easy.
Yeah, it's just the game making just the only way to play. And very good example of this is Roly Vortex.
Yeah.
So congratulations again, Yanesh. But the idea behind it is that the level looks hard because you have obstacles on the whole outside of the tube, on the whole inside of the tube. But in fact, if you watch people play, they're only going to play on about 20 to 30% of the tube at the bottom, where there are less obstacles than on the sides and on the top. Which means that it's going to seem like every time you're doing something amazing, but it's a super, super, super simple and easy game. So CPI was super low because people were like, oh wow, this looks really cool, this looks really smooth, this looks like, you have to be good to play. But when they played it, the retention was really good because they I'm so good at this, And again, just a word of warning on this, that doesn't mean that you have to put obstacles everywhere and a path in the middle, because Roly Vortex works also because it's clear and simple and not too cluttered. So, don't take this to the extreme, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
I think we're...
a couple more questions. Good.
So, question from...
James
Raja. Hey man, so the question is, can a gameplay with simple graphics, circle, square, cube, get a low CPI? Yes, definitely. You can definitely have very low CPI with very simple graphics. But the latest game we published, Perfect Hit, has relatively simple graphics. Another one that we also published, 10Q, has very simple graphics. It's a ball and very simple platforms. So you definitely can have a very low CPI with very simple graphics. The advantage of having simple graphics is that
mass market.
It's super mass market. Men and women will like it, will understand the game. Yeah, and the gameplay is super readable if you have very simple graphics. So people will understand what's going on. No problem.
Just a quick note before we move on to the last question from Halikaya. You say it's good to know that. So for sure, I mean, of course, we told you it was the opposite of what you were trying to do. I understand that that you might feel that way, but really check out the videos on the dashboard. We do talk about all these things. We do mention all these things, and we are going to be adding some stuff. So
I think that's it for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. Next Wednesday is a national holiday here in France, so we won't be at the office, so we can't do the live stream. But we'll be back the week after that.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for joining us, guys.
It was great having you. It was great having you. Don't hesitate to keep on making these cool games. I saw just one last question about, you have to be super innovative as much as you can.
Yeah.
Keep on looking everywhere. Keep on getting experience for everything, and let's make some hits.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining.